What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of The Bottom Line View, back with another NFL Top 5 video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the top 5 most underrated NFL teams going into the 2017 season. These are the 5 teams that not a lot of fans or the NFL media in general are really paying attention to. They're really overlooked, and a lot of these teams have very solid squads that could even sneak into the playoffs or even further in this 2017 season. These are the 5 most underrated NFL teams going into the 2017 season, according to the panel on The Bottom Line View. Kicking off the most underrated NFL teams of 2017, the Minnesota Vikings, a very solid team that started off very hot last year, and it was due to the fact that they had a dominant defense. They had a dominant pass rush with Everson Griffin, Daniel Hunter on the outside, a powerful defensive line interior with Linval Joseph. They have pretty solid linebackers, Anthony Barr, Kendricks, and Harrison Smith leading the back end. Offensively, they were a little slow. You know, they had to come around to Sam Bradford playing at quarterback because Teddy Bridgewater was out with an injury. Of course, we all know the story with the trade with Sam Bradford. But Sam Bradford actually had a very solid season. He set the record for the best completion percentage. And yes, a completion percentage record is a record nonetheless. And Sam Bradford played pretty decent football for the Minnesota Vikings under this scheme. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, and they're a team built with a strong defense. They're trying to get back to having a strong run game. They picked up Latavius Murray in the offseason in free agency from the Oakland Raiders. Not quite Adrian Peterson, but a good, solid starting caliber running back. They also drafted with the upside of Dalvin Cook from FSU. Very good vision, quick, in and out of the holes, and I think Dalvin Cook could be a superstar running back in the future. So they have a good combination at the running back position. At the wide receiver position, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are 2 up-and-coming receivers, not to mention Laquan Treadwell is going to have his first season this year. But the main thing with the Minnesota Vikings was, what were they going to do this offseason for their offensive line? They had an awful offensive line, and I feel like they really addressed that area of their team for the most part. You know, they have some solid players in the inside with Alex Boone. They also have Joe Berger, who are looked at as their 2 best offensive linemen, both playing at the guard positions. They picked up Mike Ramirez from the Carolina Panthers. Very solid run-blocking right tackle. Not the greatest pass blocker, but decent nonetheless. Left tackle, they have Riley Reif, who I really feel is a pretty underrated tackle from the Detroit Lions. So looking at their roster, they're really solid. And in all areas of the roster, they have a roster that can really contend as long as Sam Bradford has a quality season once again. They put those pieces in place, and their defense performs the way it can and up to expectation. We expect the Minnesota Vikings to be on the fringe of the playoffs and arguably even make and squeak into the playoffs, and they're a team that not a lot of people are talking about in that NFC North this season. Then the next team on the most underrated list is the Washington Redskins. The Redskins are a team that really solidified their defense in the offseason, and I have a feeling that the Washington Redskins are going to be a team to be reckoned with, and basically this whole division is going to be very tough. But the Washington Redskins, I have a personal crush on, because you look at their offense, and they have a ton of playmakers all over it. They pick up Terrell Pryor from the Cleveland Browns, and he had 1,000 yards on the Cleveland Browns. Do I really have to say much more than that? Josh Doxson, who is a first-round receiver, is going to come into his own this year, and he's going to be playing opposite Terrell Pryor. And then my favorite receiver on the Redskins is their slot, Jamison Crowder, who I really like, and he could potentially be the next up-and-coming big-time receiver in this league. He's very much in the mold of the Antonio Browns of the world. You look to their offensive line, very solid. Trent Williams is one of the best tackles in the league. Now, their running game is pretty much their weakness on their offense because Kirk Cousins threw for about 5,000 yards last year. He had no problem passing the ball, and with these weapons, he'll have no problem whatsoever. You also throw in the fact that they have the best tight end triple threat in the game with Jordan Reed, Niles Paul, and Vernon Davis. Lots of depth at that position. Jordan Reed, when he's healthy, is one of the best in the game. Rob Kelly, you know, if he can really be consistent on the ground for them, they could have a potent top-tier offense in this league. You also throw in P. Ryan, who they drafted, who has a lot of upside in there, and Chris Thompson is not bad himself. They have a very good offense that can scare a lot of defenses in this league. But the part that I really like about the Redskins going into the season is their defense, because I feel it's super improved from last year. You look at a couple of the ads they had specifically that I really, really like, and that includes Zach Brown from the Buffalo Bills, who I think is a beast at linebacker. He'll fit in very nicely in that 3-4 scheme. In the inside, they really, really needed to support their interior defense with Zach Brown. They also have Mason Foster, Preston Smith, and Ryan Kerrigan at the linebacker position, which is very good. You also throw in Chris Carter, Will Compton, Trent Murphy, Ryan Anderson. That's a very good core of linebackers. Jonathan Allen at the defensive end position, who they drafted in the first round. I think it's going to be awesome for them, and he can really help them stop the run, which they weren't very good at last year. Josh Norman is still there. So I think they're going to have a pretty good defense this year, at least a lot better than it was last year. Throw in a very potent offense, and you have yourself probably a borderline playoff team, depending on how well they do inside their division. The next team on the list is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are a team, again, with a great offense. It's a lot to do with their defense. How is their defense going to perform? And that's really how they're going to end up this season. You look at Drew Brees, and the guy is phenomenal. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He can carry a team himself. But now they brought in Adrian Peterson to team up with Mark Ingram, not to mention they also drafted Alvin Kamara to back up those two guys. So an awesome complement between Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson could make the Saints very dangerous on the ground. You also throw in Michael Thomas, who was an amazing breakout player last year for them. Ted Ginn is going to try and replace what Brandon Cooks gave them, obviously not to the same degree, but he does have good speed and should be able to fit in well. I really like Willie Snead as a very good slot receiver. He came into his own last year. Their offensive line is gotten slowly better. You know, they got Larry Warford from the Detroit Lions. The one problem they do have is they did draft Ryan Ramczyk in this year's draft, but they did lose Armstead, who is their left tackle. He's hurt, so they got to try and find a way to replace him, whether that's with Ramczyk or with Khalif Barnes. They kind of have to figure out whatever they're going to do there at the left tackle position. But Kobe Fleener, maybe he'll be better, maybe he won't. Defensively is the story for them. I mean, I love Cameron Jordan. I like Sheldon Rankins. It does really hurt that they no longer have Nick Fairley this season, it seems like. But I think they did improve their linebacking core a little bit. You throw in the signing of A.J. Klein, who I think is a pretty solid player. Then at the cornerback position, which they really needed to improve because their secondary has been really, really bad. Marshawn Lattimore at the cornerback position, I think is going to give them a huge boost. The #1 corner in the draft. So he should be able to be somewhat of an improvement from what they had last year. Also, Delvin Breaux, if he can stay on the field, is a pretty solid contributor at the corner position as well. And maybe expect a bounce-back season from safety Kenny Vaccaro if they're going to make a run. But I look at the Saints as another team with a potent offense. They can put up the points anywhere against any team. It's just a matter of getting the stops, getting the turnovers to set up that offense. And if the Saints can do that with the scheme change, with a few additions, I think they'll be able to, have a solid season in that NFC South this year, and the Saints are another team to look out for. Then we go to the next team, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles, you look across this roster, this is a well-built, constructed team. All of the people on the bottom line view really like the Eagles going into this season. Alshon Jeffrey was a huge signing for them and definitely gave them that #1 target that Carson Wentz desperately needed. Jordan Matthews is not a #1 receiver, but he is a solid slot receiver, and he's going to fit in very nicely in that second role. Then you have Torrey Smith, who they added on to take the top off the defense. Their offensive line is very, very underrated with guys like Jason Peters, Jason Kelsey, and Lane Johnson in the mix. Also, Brandon Brooks is no slouch himself. The tight end position is very solid with Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, Trey Burton. The quarterback position is the question mark. Carson Wentz was very good in his first season for a rookie, but can he step it up and can he improve is the question. Also, can he throw the ball down the field to his new targets in Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith? That's going to be a huge question. Will Doug Peterson set more plays up for him to really let his athletic ability shine? That's going to be big for him. You look at the signing of LeGarrette Blount, massive. They still have Ryan Matthews on the roster, but I wouldn't doubt if he got cut at some point. Darren Sproles is going to be Darren Sproles all day long. They still have Wendell Smallwood backing up LeGarrette Blount. I think Blount will be a solid addition to this team and will be something similar to what Ryan Matthews gave them, but maybe a little bit better and will help the physicality of their offense. Defensively, physicality is not lacking because you have guys like Fletcher Cox, who is a complete animal. Brandon Graham was one of the best DNs in the league last year. They added Chris Long to come in. They still have Vinny Curry in the mix, so they're going to have a very good defensive line. They also added Timmy Jernigan from Baltimore, who, if anybody knows how to play on the D-line, it's Baltimore. Nigel Bradham, Jordan Hicks, and Michael Kendricks are three very solid, fast, athletic linebackers. Nigel Bradham was a decent signing for them. Jordan Hicks is one of the best covered linebackers in the league, and Michael Kendricks has shown flashes of good play in the past. Their safety tandem is one of the best in the league as well. Rodney McLeod, who's been way under the radar for a ton of years now. Malcolm Jenkins, Mr. Do-It-All, play safety, play corner. It doesn't really matter. Malcolm Jenkins does it, and he does it at an elite level. Patrick Robinson and Jalen Mills are the question marks. What is their defense going to be like? Of course, they drafted Sidney Jones, but he's not really going to be back right away, so the corner position is the huge question mark. They were really good defensively for a good portion of the season. If they can hide the fact that their corner position isn't very good, then we could see the Eagles come back and come on strong. And if they get the great play from Carson Wentz that is expected in the second-year jump, this team could be a playoff team. You look at that dominant D-line, good linebackers, good safeties, decent weapons now, and a good offensive line. That's a spell for a team that can squeak into the playoffs with a very solid, well-constructed roster that is built to play in this division. We all like the Eagles, and we think they're going to surprise some people. And the last team we think is very underrated in the NFL is the San Diego/Los Angeles Superchargers. Now, the Los Angeles Superchargers are now going to be led by Anthony Lynn, but they're still going to have two very quality coordinators, and Anthony Lynn is not going to be relied upon as much as a typical head coach would be. Yes, Anthony Lynn I really like because I think he's going to give something to this LA Chargers team that hasn't been there really since LT. Yes, Melvin Gordon was good last year, but Anthony Lynn is going to take this run game to the next level. Every single place Anthony Lynn has been, their run game has been superb. You know, whether it was back in the day or whether it was very currently, just last year with LaShawn McCoy and the Buffalo Bills, one of the best running teams in the league. The offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator being Ken Wisenhunt, who has a lot of experience in that department and ran a good offense last year. And defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, who's going to be bringing, you know, some of his flair to the team. So they have a lot of experience in their coaching staff, which is a very good positive note. Then you look at their offense and their defensive talent. I love their offense. You know, their offensive line is a little bit shaky, but they did sign Russell Okung, which I think is a really good signing. They got Forrest Lamp in there from the draft. They did kind of reconstruct that offensive line to help protect Phillip Rivers. That was a huge issue last year. And another huge issue for the Chargers has been for years now is they can't protect the quarterback. They can't stay healthy either. You know, Keenan Allen, this guy has all the talent in the world, but he can't stay on the field. So they drafted Mike Williams. Now, if they get Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Tyrell Williams on the field at the same time, you also throw in Dontrell Inman, Travis Benjamin. That's 5 very, very good receivers. That's a great wide receiver core, especially if Mike Williams lives up to the billing of being one of the top receivers in this draft. And they have Keenan Allen, who I think is a #1 receiver when he's playing. This is going to be a scary offense. You throw in a talented runner in Melvin Gordon, a veteran quarterback of Phillip Rivers, 2 good tight ends in Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates. Man, this offense is going to be really, really hard to stop. Their defense, Joey Bosa is going to be even better next year. He's becoming one of the most elite DNs in the NFL, which that is a sick D-line right there. Brandon Mebane, Corey Legit, and Joey Bosa. Very nice. Linebacker-wise, you look at Melvin Ingram, who they signed to a big contract. You know, they're very young and fast and athletic, but the place that I really love the corner position for the San Diego Chargers. Casey Hayward led the NFL in interceptions last year. Then you have a shutdown guy in Jason Verrett. Two very different but very good corners that can match up Casey Hayward could shift more to the slot now, thanks to Jason Verrett being back and healthy. If this team stays on the field and they stay intact, they're going to be in every single game they play. They're going to be a very tough out. And this is a team that's built well because you have a good passing defense with a good team that can score points. So if you get up in games, it's going to be hard to come back on the Chargers. So those are the 5 most underrated teams in the NFL going into the 2017 season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Let us know if you disagree with our choices. Of course, our choices being the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Redskins, the New Orleans Saints, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, keep in mind that these are the 5 most underrated teams and not the 5 dark horse teams. There is a difference between this. The 5 most underrated teams are the teams that we think a lot of people are undervaluing going into this season and we feel could have a chance for the playoffs, while the 5 dark horse teams are the teams that we think people are a little bit more savvy on, but we think they could be teams that squeak in the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs this year and really make that next step. So that's the difference between underrated and dark horse, just so you guys know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel for more top 5 NFL videos, including the top 5 dark horse teams and the top 5 teams that could beat the Patriots in 2017. Hope you guys enjoy this video. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Peace out.